Exponents and the order of operations. This is some really important information that you're about to learn. First off, let's look at exponents. Look at an example. 4 to the 5th. What exponents are? They're repeated multiplication. If you look at this 4, 4 is called the base, and the small number above it is called the exponent. What this means is that 4 is being multiplied by itself 5 times. In other words, there are 5 4's being multiplied. So if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the same thing as 4 to the 5th, because we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 4's being multiplied to each other. That's what it means. If I were to ask you something like this, to rewrite 7 to the 3rd, then what you would see is, you have an exponent of 3. What that means is you would have to write down 3 7's and multiply those out. So that's the same as 7 times 7 times 7. It is not 7 times 3. 7 times 3 is written with a big 3. Little 3 means repeated multiplication, exponents. Now when you see this, 4 to the 2nd power, the way that's going to be read is 4 squared. Now this 4 to the 3rd power, the way we're going to read it is 4 cubed. It's based on geometry, in case you're wondering. A square, when we find the area of a square, we multiply side times a side. When we find the volume of a cube, we multiply side times side times side. I'll talk about that later on in other modules. Now 4 to the 4th is read as 4 to the 4th. It doesn't have a special name. These are the two that we give special names to. So let's do some examples involving exponents. Expand the following. So if you were to see something like this, 2 to the 4th, what you would do is you would rewrite it as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Notice I wrote 4 of them. If we saw something like 9 to the 7th, you would write 9 7 times. In fact, if you were to see something like x to the 3rd, you would write x 3 times. All this means the same. Now let's do a backwards question. What if you saw 4 times 4? Well, a faster way to write it is 4 to the 2nd. See, all this information is, what a lot of math and algebra is just so things can be done quickly and efficiently. So instead of having to write 4 times 4, a faster way to write it is 4 squared. Instead of having to write 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, a faster way to write it would be to recognize that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tens. So that's the same thing as 10 to the 6th. So that's what that means. Now let's get to some problems. We're actually going to work these out and see what's going on. 3 squared. 3 squared is the same as 3 times 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. Let's look at 6 cubed. 6 cubed is the same as 6 times 6 times 6. Now when we do this, we're just going to go left to right. 6 times 6 is 36, and then 36 times 6 is 216. That's how we do those. Now this one right here, a lot of people miss this one. Be careful. You don't do 5 times 3 first. We do the exponent first, and you're about to find out why. But we're going to do the 3 squared first, which is, so what you might want to do first to make sure that you get this correctly is to rewrite the 3 squared without exponents as 3 times 3, so you won't miss it. 5 times 3 is 15, and then 15 times 3 is 45. And here we go. This is by far one of the most important concepts you're going to learn in this first unit, this first module, first chapter. Order of operations. There's a certain order on how to do or how to simplify problems. Here's what it is. PEMDAS. This is not true. Keep that in mind. PEMDAS is not true. PEMDAS. This is an acronym. It just gives you an easy way to remember the order of operations. The P represents parentheses and brackets. It also represents braces. So if you see anything like this or that, or that. What that means is you want to simplify what's inside of those first. The E represents the exponents. That's just what we got done covering. The M and the D represent multiplication and division. Here's where this isn't true. It's whichever comes first, left or right. So this PEMDAS could be PEDMAS. The D could come before the M. It just depends whichever comes first, left or right. A and the S represents addition and subtraction. Whichever comes first, left or right. So this PEMDAS could be PEDMAS, PIMSA, PIMSA. Or in other words, the M and the D go together and the A and the S go together. Whichever comes first, left or right. So let's do some examples so you can have a better understanding of what's going on. As you can tell, we got a few examples. Here we go. When we look at this, before we do that, if you take a good look at the order, you're pretty much doing the most difficult stuff first. It's kind of a way to think about it. So here we go. We got 3 plus 4 squared. We have addition. We have exponents. Exponent comes first. So we need to do 4 squared, and 4 squared is the same as 4 times 4. When you multiply before you do addition, 4 times 4 is 16. 3 plus 16 is 19, and you're done. If you do the order, you won't miss these, and you'll find out these are probably a whole lot easier. If you don't do the order, you probably get big numbers that you don't want to see. Let's look at this one. First thing we see is parentheses. We want to simplify inside parentheses first. Notice how I do this. I'm writing down everything that I'm not using, and I'm going to focus on the parentheses. 8 minus 2 is 6. I show everything step by step. I leave nothing out. What we're doing is we're trying to make this long problem into a shorter problem, and now we have a shorter problem, and we have multiplication, we have addition. Multiplication comes first. 7 times 6 is 42. Notice I'm bringing down the plus 6. I'm not leaving out any step. I'm not combining any steps. When you get the hang of these, you can, but until you get the hang of these, don't leave out any steps. 42 plus 6 is 48. Let's come over here. This is a really commonly missed problem. A lot of people want to take the 7 minus 3 is 4 and 4 times 2 is 8. That's not correct because you have subtraction and you have multiplication. Multiplication comes first. So let's do the 3 times 2, which is 6. Everything else I haven't used, I'm going to bring down 7 and the subtraction sign. So now we have a new problem. 7 minus 6 is 1. Be careful with those. If you look at this one, you want to do the parentheses first, and 10 minus 2 gives you 8. Now I'm going to use this one to show you an example of how to combine steps. See, I could bring down the 8 squared, but when I bring down the 8 squared and I'm thinking about it, what's going to be my next step? Well, my next step is going to be to find 8 squared, which is 64. Well, why not do that now? 8 squared is the same as 8 times 8, which is 64. See how I combine those two steps? It did not hurt the problem at all. 64 divided by 8 is 8. Now this is another commonly missed problem. A lot of people will do the multiplication first because they think if PEMDAS and M comes before D. Remember, M and D go together. Whichever comes first, left or right. So some people will take 3 times 3 is 9 and think 9 divided by 9 is 1 and think they're right. And that's not the case. Anytime you get division and multiplication, you just work the left or right, whichever comes first. 9 divided by 3 is 3. I'm going to bring down the parentheses with the 3 inside and multiply those. 3 times 3 is 9. Let's do another one. This one's got a lot of information in it. So this one I'm definitely going to combine some steps. When I see the brackets and parentheses, that's what I'm going to do. Let's go ahead and work inside the brackets. Inside the brackets you'll see parentheses. 25 minus 16 is 9. I'm going to bring down the plus and the minus. Now inside the bracket, my next work to do, or next step will be to do the exponents. Let's just go ahead and do them now to save a step. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. 2 to the 4th is the same as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. This 2 times 2 gives you 8, times 2 more gives you 16, times 2 more gives you 32. Now notice this. Since I have all this separated by plus signs, I can go ahead and do the work over here in parentheses. 8 minus 2 is 6. I can come over here also. Now those parentheses, there's nothing to do inside, but those parentheses mean to multiply, so I can go ahead and multiply those and take care of that. 11 times 2 is 22. It's not going to hurt the problem at all. So I'm going to bring down that 6. Those parentheses aren't necessary now because I just have a single number inside. These are some tricks that you're going to learn as you go. Ways to combine steps and leave out things that you don't need. And here I have all addition, subtraction, so I'm just going to go left to right. By the way, I missed this. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 more is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. The reason why I knew that, we don't want any negative answers roaming around. So this should be a 16. How many of you caught that? So now let's go left to right. 9 plus 9 is 18. 18 minus 16 is 2. Once I have that single number inside the brackets, those brackets don't mean anything because the plus sign takes precedence, and all it means is taking 6 plus 2, which is 8, and 8 plus 22 is 30. I could have done all that at once. 6 plus 2 is 8, 8 plus 22 is 30. Let's do one more. It's a common mistake that I see with a lot of people. And so let's go ahead and try it, see what happens. Let's do 4 plus 4 bracket 2 parentheses 3 minus 1 plus 7. Should be a bracket. Now here's where, okay, it's just most people will start out correctly, and they do inside the bracket first. And they'll see inside the brackets they got parentheses, 3 minus 1 is 2. And then everything else they'll drop down. And then same thing. They'll know to bring down what's in front and do the brackets. 2 plus 2 is 4. And then, or my bad, 2 times 2, that's the multiplication. 2 times 2 is 4, and then plus 7. And then they'll know to keep working inside the brackets, and 4 plus 7 is 11. And here's where people miss it. For whatever reason, people like to do the 4 plus 4 is 8 and times that by 11 and get 88. That's not correct. Multiplication comes first. Multiplication before you add. 4 times 11 is 44. And drop the 4 in front. The first thing that you saw is the last thing that you work with. So now we're going to multiply 4 times 44, and we get 176. So be aware of that one. I see a lot of mistakes with a problem like that. And now the last example we're going to do, or last concept we're going to look at, or last topic, is the area of a square. Anytime we do area, we're always thinking of multiplication. And so, just like a rectangle is length times width, we can do the same thing with a square. Now, think about a square is, if one side is 5 centimeters, then all sides are 5 centimeters. Now, the biggest mistake I'll see with this is that people will automatically think to add up all the sides. That's not area. That's perimeter when you add them all up. Area is when you take a side times a side. So, the reason why I have this side squared, because it's just like what I said, it's the same as side times side. It just so happens that the side's the same thing. So a faster way to write side side, or side times side, is side to the second power. The reason why we have an S here, because we can abbreviate side with an S. So the area formula for a square is A equals S squared, where S represents a side. So in this problem, we're going to use that formula, A equals S squared, and S happens to be 5 centimeters. And 5 centimeters squared is 5 times 5, which is 25. And centimeters squared is, you can write out in words centimeter squared, or you can start doing this now. Centimeter with the exponent of 2. It means square centimeters, or centimeters squared.